Morning, this is Dave Rogie here for the Chelan Sports Blog, and I'm here this morning with Coach Marty Roethlisberger of the boys and girls GOATS tennis team. And Coach, thanks again, always. It's a pleasure to be here with you and get a chance to chat in the morning after a big match. How are things going? And I know you played Cascade last night, so talk to us about generally maybe that tournament and tell us a little bit about last night if you would.
Are you referring to the SELA tournament this
Yes,
past weekend?
yes, I am.
We'll start, I guess we'll go chronologically. The SELA tournament was good. We traveled down to SELA and we played against Eastmont, SELA, and Cascade, ironically, so we played them twice in 3 days. We go down to the SELA tournament because it's really good competition. All the schools they have good programs, often because they're, bigger than us, but also Cascade has a good 1A program. We had a lot of close matches. I think there was a lot of growth. We've kind of solidified who's playing what as far as singles or doubles, and those players got to play those matches against quality opponents. So the boys almost beat Eastmont to win the tournament, which would have been a huge accomplishment to beat a 4A team, and they're not just an average 4A team, they're a pretty decent 4A team. So it was nice to see them play well. The girls also held their own against all those other teams. They were about 500 on the day.
Wow.
But against quality teams, that's promising. So, last night we played Cascade. Cascade, that was a Jekyll and Hyde match for us. The boys did really well. Cascade's boys struggled a little bit. Cascade's girls team is very good. They were second in state last year and returned everyone, so they're very, very deep, and they thumped us pretty good last night. I think it was a combination of Cascade's a good team. We had some players that didn't play as well as they would have liked to play. We were missing our number one singles player. So it all kind of came together on one night, and they beat us pretty handily. But we get to play them again next week, and we're gonna do a lot better. So.
Now, you mentioned that when we were talking just briefly before we got started this morning, you mentioned next week you've got 3 CTL matches coming up.
Yeah.
What all's going on, and is any of it here at home, or all of it, or just...
So basically, we're halfway through the CTL season, so we've played Kashmir, OMAC, and Cascade once, and then we play them again all next week. Going from memory, you're testing my memory. I believe Kashmir is at home on Tuesday. I believe OMAC is at home on Thursday, and I believe Friday we travel to Cascade.
Okay. So now, then, once you've played through that, that's it for the league, or do you...
That's it for the regular season.
Right.
So our regular season ends next Friday. The coaches have a seeding meeting on Monday, and then we play the CTL tournament the following weekend. So we're moving through the postseason after next week.
Gotcha. Now, how, I don't know where you guys are right now with the standings. Boys, I'm assuming you're probably on top.
Yeah.
And so if you finish, let's say boys finish 1 and girls finish 2, then do the boys play here and the girls play somewhere else, or does it work that way?
No, it's more like track and wrestling and that sort of thing, where there's tournaments at individual sites. So actually, and you don't move on as a team like you would in a team sport. So like wrestling and that sort of thing. I think wrestling is probably a pretty good analogy. You have, just like you have individual brackets in wrestling, you have individual brackets in tennis for girls singles and girls doubles and that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
So the CTL tournament will be in Kashmir 1 week after the regular season is over, and then there's a district tournament and then the state tournament.
I see.
3 consecutive weekends.
Okay. And each of those would be out of the area then, and the
Correct.
kids progressing would be based on how they perform in these tournaments then?
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Okay.
basically the team standings is just a regular season thing. There's a team trophy for whichever team finishes first. But then after that, you're kind of on your own. And you score points as a team at the district tournament, at the state tournament. But as far as moving from one level to the next, you don't move as a team, you move as an individual.
Gotcha. Okay. What, throughout the course of the season, we've talked a little bit about, the schedule, or rosters and different things like that, but we also chatted a bit early on about where you felt they are, and then in the middle of, here after a couple weeks ago, we talked a little bit about kind of where you see them at that point now. You mentioned growth, and I know you've had them in that one big tournament. You got another big one coming up for that purpose. How are you feeling about where they are in terms of what you expected? Are you kind of ahead of the curve, behind it? Just how are you feeling about all of that?
I actually feel like we're ahead of where I hope we would be. We have some players and some doubles teams that are having a lot of success and still seeing a lot of growth. The coaches talk about making sure the players peak at the right time, so they're still improving and getting better, and they still have a lot of energy and enthusiasm. I do feel like we're at that point right now. So, you know, we have another week and a half till the postseason, so we got to keep improving, keep the energy up, and that sort of thing. But otherwise, I think we're in good shape.
When you are coaching a group of kids that are kind of spread out, you know, it's not like you bring them all, well, I shouldn't say that, maybe you do. But, you know, it kind of, when you think about practices of other team sports, people, they tend to maybe group them in little, they want them to go do this drill or that drill. You kind of have a little different situation, I assume, because you get kids spread out all over the court and they're just hitting the ball back and forth and they're working on serves and they're working on returns, I'm sure, and things like that. How do you just kind of move about throughout them, you and your coaches, do you pick a group
You're
and
asking what a practice looks like? Is that
well,
kind of
yeah,
what
I'm
you're-
kind of curious. You know, you've talked about growth, and they continue to improve and keep that enthusiasm. So I'm just curious, when you, as a coach, are working with them in between games, let's say, and at practice situations and stuff, are you looking for specific things? Are you working on drills as a group? How do you go about approaching that?
We do it a couple different ways. We tend to have doubles players working on different things than singles players. We run practices a couple different ways, where we might have just the doubles players working on double stuff and the singles players working on single stuff. Or, you know, like a lot of other sports, we have stations
Sure.
some days where
Okay, that's,
you
yeah.
move between stations and
Gotcha.
you're working on a bunch of different skills. So it varies.
But once you get into the actual matches, is that when you really begin to focus on that growth, or do you prefer to see it in between the matches? Just how would how do you try to look at that as a coach?
Well, I don't think there's necessarily any skills that are unimportant, or that's, I mean, it's not
Sure.
like you stop working on some things and you might emphasize some other things as a doubles team. You know, doubles,
Gotcha.
you have to be a lot better at volleying and overheads and that sort of thing. But those are also still skills you want a singles player
Sure,
to have. So
sure.
I think there's emphasis, but we still work on everything.
Great. Well, Coach, thanks for explaining that for people who maybe watch but don't necessarily understand how you go about getting a student ready for a particular singles or a doubles team or whatever. You know, it's kind of interesting to know because you see other kinds of things, but this is a sport where it's so individual, much like track can be, much like golf can be, that you kind of wonder how that coach tries to assess the whole thing, and then where do they place their emphasis. And it sounds like you do a lot of similar kinds of things, but yet also make sure that there's some focused individual work that you see in the players. So.
You bet. Yep.
Well, Coach, thanks again. We always enjoy talking to you. We'll be chatting with you again, I'm sure, either during the week or by the end of the week next week as you guys progress through, and we'll certainly want to hear about the tournament this weekend. And we do appreciate your willingness to share and to keep everyone informed about how the Goats are doing on the tennis courts. And all I can say is go Goats.
All right, me too. Go
All right.
Goats.
Thanks,
Dave.
Coach. Dave Rogie here with Coach Roethlisberger of the tennis team at the high school. Thanks, Coach.